So it's Monday morning, about 5:18 a.m. It was a rough night. Probably have about an hour and a half sleep. Uh, we found a park, and that's where we stayed at. Bill and I. It was rough, yeah. But we made it. This is our second day, and looking forward to what God has in store. Divine appointments. Just looking forward to that. So it's about 6:12. Um, I'm actually right here outside our church, just sitting here. We've been walking around, and it's kind of tired, and it's really hot. Anyway, today we were just at the Reno Sparks Gospel Mission. We ate dinner there, and this guy Larry sat down on my table, and so anyway, Larry's story. He is from here in Reno, and then he's got one daughter in Fernley. Anyway, he's staying in one of the motels here in the inner city, but just cannot afford it. He used to pay about $600, and they jack up the price to about $880, and he just cannot afford it. And so he's struggling, and he was telling me about how he was fighting with the devil for a while. And so when I heard that, I just asked him, so what did you do? Or he basically told me that he was able to defeat his demons and the devil. And I asked him, how did he defeat the devil? He said, when he reached out to God. And so is that amazing? So anyway, we are going to be walking here and going on the other side of downtown, and then going back to the park where we stayed at last night, and hoping that the sprinklers will not be on today. So all right.
Yeah. Daisy. Good, you gotta have permission to take a picture. Pay me $5 or $20 for my picture. Take it off.
Bill and I started walking at around 4. We went to the Reno Sparks Gospel Mission to have dinner, and while we were waiting, we saw a couple of fights. And I just want to tell you, it's a different world being around that community. It's a different world. But then you see and know that they have values, that in God's eyes, that every single one of them are valuable to God. But it's a different world. And then while having dinner, I met this guy Michael, having 10 children. 10, man, a lot of kids. And just to see his kids grow up in that environment, it's a terrible thing. It's not a good environment for anybody, including children. So he's struggling. He told me that some of his kids are staying with his sister, and he's got a teenager with them, Jason, 8th grader. Terrible, just terrible. And his daughter had just had some struggles speaking. She's about 5 years old. So July 30, from downtown we went to south part of town. We went to a couple of the casinos there, and we wanted to see how we would be treated. And surprisingly, we were treated okay. They didn't ask us to leave. And so then we went back to the Gospel Mission to eat dinner. And so a guy by the name of Larry sat down next to me. And so Larry had a daughter that lives in Fernley. He's just really having some difficulties. He couldn't afford where he was staying at. He used to pay about $600, and now they jack up the price. So now he has to pay over $800 a month, and he just can't afford it. And so he also told me that mentally and spiritually he's a lot better. He has been fighting with demons, and he said that he defeated these demons. And I asked him, how did he defeat them or defeat them? And he basically said, I reach out to God. And so that was an awesome story. But anyway, that was Larry. And then we went back. We went to a couple of casinos in downtown. And but that's pretty much our day. July 31st. Bill and I slept better, and we got somewhat some rest. It was still pretty hot, tiring, but we thank God for some sleep, because the first night we only had about an hour and a half, and so for the last 2 nights it's been good for us. Yesterday was really a tough day. It's really rough. It's a different world out here. People are angry. People are frustrated. People are hopeless. One specific story I want to share with you. We were at Wingfield Park, and there was a group of family, a young man and a young woman with, I believe it was their daughter, who looked like about 11 years old, and mom, an older woman was there too. I think that was mom, and a couple of other guys with them. But anyway, this guy, one guy was just ranting, was angry, just yelling and screaming, trying to fight with another group of people, just out of control, in front of this young girl. It's just so sad. He was basically just angry, cussing people out, just loud. And then not long after that, the girlfriend started fighting with them, and she was pretty violent, and a lot of screaming, a lot of cussing. It was just bad in front of this 11-year-old, and it was pretty violent. And Bill and I started walking away, and when we heard that the woman was pregnant, and it was pretty sad. Anyway, But in the midst of all of that, I was actually overwhelmed with how broken our world is. It's pretty broken. But in the midst of all of that brokenness, I found hope and encouragement. I met 3 guys yesterday that God completely changed, transformed by the power of God. Paul was an example, was one of them. Paul, changed by Jesus, in and out of prison, did a lot of terrible things, but God, he reached out to God, and God changed him and transformed him completely. The second one was this young man, Sebastian. He's got to be at least, probably 22. He basically started doing drugs when he was 12. Just lost his mind. Went to a mental institution a couple of times. During that time, basically he met Jesus. He met Jesus actually about 3 months ago, and now he is in the program here at the Reno Sparks Gospel Mission. What a story. And he actually plays guitar and piano, and he did it beautifully. Just an amazing man, full of talents and giftings. Thirdly, I met this guy, Paulie. Now, Paulie was very interesting. He's 24 years old, homeless. Paulie had a story. When he was 3 months old, his mother, who was a meth addict, didn't want him, and he basically threw Paulie, this little, at the time he was 3 months old, threw him in a garbage bin. Imagine, just his mother just didn't care about him and his life, and he threw him in a garbage bin. Just imagine that. A lady found him, adopted him, and this lady, supposedly a Christian, but Paulie said that she was very abusive. In fact, tortured him many times. One of the things that she did, she chained him up many times, just things like that, and they would go to church. It's a mess. But anyway, one thing that was interesting and struck me, Paulie said that, there's one thing I hate, which is meth and drugs. One thing I hate, but I'm doing it. And I asked him, why are you doing it, man? And he simply replied, and he said, well, because that's the way to survive in this world. And so try to minister to him, try to love on him, but that's the world we live in, and it's just so broken. August 1st, we went to South Potter Town to Panhandle, and we just wanted to see and how people would respond and kind of experience that. So I went to Whole Foods. That's where I stood for a couple of hours, and I counted the cars that pulled out of the parking lot there into the main streets. 75 cars. And so I had 3 people responded out of 75. So one guy, a young guy, stopped, and he said, hey, I don't have any money, but I have a bag of chips. And so he gave me an open Cheetos puffs, and that was interesting. So Cheetos, and so he gave me that. And then there was a guy, a young guy, another young guy that was driving a really nice Lexus. So he went into the main streets, and then he turned around and came back into the parking lot, and he stopped. And he called me, hey, I want to give you this book. And this will help you. And the book was Think and Grow Rich. So that was interesting. So then he drove away. And the last one that responded was a young lady. And this one really impacted my life, impacted me yesterday. Because it looked like she didn't have much. Well, I don't think she really had much. She basically took all of her coins and gave it to me, and she said, I don't have much, but this is all I have. And it was $1.69. $1.69. And so that was impactful. You're talking about 75 cars. Most of the people that were there were probably people with money. You're talking about Whole Foods and BMW, and actually there was a Ferrari even. And basically they saw me, but they acted as if they didn't see me or I did not exist. That was probably, I would say, about 70 cars. 2 cars gave me a wave and said hello or a smile, but the rest, they just kind of looked away. So that was my experience yesterday. And then we went to a church in town. They have a Wednesday night service, and we wanted to see how the church would respond. And so this church responded pretty good. Some people came up to us and welcomed us and said hello. So that was a good experience for us, knowing that this church is welcoming. So that was our experience yesterday. August 2nd. So last night was a tough night for us again, especially for Bill. It was really cold. He was shivering all night. Probably had about an hour and a half or so sleep, and kind of a long night. And then so in the morning we went down to downtown to meet Denise from Channel 8. They're doing our story, and so we're excited about that. And after that, we decided to go down to the pit, or Reno Sparks Gospel Mission, and we've decided to have lunch at St. Vincent's. Man, I'm telling you, St. Vincent's, they rock. The facility is so clean. The volunteers were so nice and just friendly, and the food was excellent. I felt like I was valued, and the people there, the homeless, were valued. In spite of our smell or how we looked, we felt like we were treated with excellence. So kudos to St. Vincent's. I'm just glad that you guys are doing what you guys are doing. Thank you. I had a great experience with you guys. And after that, we just continued on walking. And then while we're doing that, we met this young man who was once a student of Reno Sparks Gospel Mission. This young man began to tell us his story. He was an alcoholic, really struggled. He started drinking when he was just a teenager, and he just became an addict. I mean, just addicted to alcohol. His mom encouraged him to go to the program, and he did that, but he didn't finish it, and so he went back to drinking again. And then the second time, he realized that he just needed to do this. Really, he needs to stop all that. And so he went back. But unfortunately, he didn't finish again. He just left and started drinking again. And so this cycle, right? Cycle. Well, one day he realized that he either stay the course, finish a program, or he'll die. Well, he didn't want to die. And so then he went back to Reno Sparks Gospel Mission. And I'm so proud of Reno Sparks Gospel Mission because, in spite of his cycle, they never given up on this young man. In fact, they took him in again and gave him another chance. But this time was different. He stayed the course. He finished the program. And Pastor Bill was a part of his journey. He planted a seed of hope and love that comes from God. So this young man doesn't believe in God still, and he was honest about that. And but I told this young man that I sense in my spirit that one day he will realize that this God who created all things loves him, cares for him, that he has a plan and a purpose for his life, and that one day he would have a relationship with the one who died for our sins and his sins, and that he would have this relationship with Christ. And so I just sense that in my spirit, but proud of him. A couple of things I've learned from him, and I believe this, that after being in a program, you got to have these two things, that you need to establish these two things, or else you'll fall back. You'll fall back into drinking or whatever, into your addiction, unless you establish these two things. Number one is you got to have a community. Number two, you got to have accountability. So you got to have a community, and you got to have accountability. And these are the two things that he realized he needed. So he had a community, and he had accountability. And so he's doing great. And so just proud of him. And then so that was my highlight. And then the last thing we did, we went to a meeting with a local county commissioner, and talking about this problem of homelessness. And so this was headed by Action. And so kudos to Action and JD and your leadership. I appreciate you for heading this thing. Anyway, I was able to share a little bit about my experience and Bill's experience being out in the streets for the last 5 days, and really the problem of homelessness, and that we got to do something about this. So I was able to share my heart. I was able to just share that there's got to be a way to make housing affordable, and there's got to be a way for us to stop from having people becoming homeless. There's got to be a way. And so I was able to share a little bit about that, and I'm hopeful that our county commissioner or commissioners and our leaders will do something about this problem. It's not getting any better, it's getting worse, and we got to stop this madness, and we got to have people that are ready to fight for injustice, and not only to fight for injustice, but to be able to be part of a solution. Together, we can definitely make a difference. So that's our day. Last day, believe it or not, last day. I'm so glad that it is over. Can't wait to see my wife. Can't wait to see my kids. I haven't seen them for a week, haven't hugged them. And I cannot wait to clean up. Oh my goodness, I haven't showered in 1 week. And it's just kind of funny how I ended up doing this. Really, it's just a call of God. There's no way in the world that I would have done it
First of all, I don't like, many of you know, I don't like camping. The reason being is I don't like sleeping on grounds. I like my bed. And so I've slept pretty much on the floor or on any grounds for the last week. So I can't wait. Second of all, um, I'm a clean freak. Yeah, I would admit it. I am a clean freak. I like myself being clean all the time. So it's kind of funny how I went and became homeless for 1 week, and so, well, it's definitely the call of God, that's for sure. Anyway, what did I learn from all of this? I'm just so glad that God is just so faithful, because the first, as in the beginning I mentioned to many of you, 6 different things of what I'm believing God for. Number one is that I would understand the heart of Jesus towards the poor and the needy, and He has done that. I understood better and deeper about His heart for the poor and the needy. Number two, that I would be able to identify with them, and I was able to do that even for just a week. Man, it is tough out there. Number three, that every single one of them are valuable. They're human beings. They are valuable to God, and they should be valuable to every single one of us. And number four is that they have a story. Man, that basically one of the impactful thing for me is hearing their stories. It's so easy for us to judge them and to tell them get a haircut and get a job without hearing their stories. If only we would take the time to know their stories, I think we would stop judging. So what am I believing God for after this? Well, I'm believing God to be able to engage with so many people that has a heart for the poor and needy. They just don't know what to do. Well, I believe that God is going to God already been speaking to me about what to do. And number five, to be able to create a program that is actually would work and be effective in helping the homeless population. So I'll give you an example, which is kind of frustrating. As you know, that Reno is growing, and because it's growing, there will be consequences, right? And one of them is everything is just so expensive. So I'll give you an example. Larry, who was paying $660 at this one motel that is infested with cockroaches, but he didn't have any choice. But then when Reno began to grow, all these motels began to jack up the price. So Larry was only receiving $700 or a little bit over $700 from SSI, and all of a sudden they jack up the price to about $880. How in the world are you gonna make that payment when you're only receiving $700 something from SSI? So what? Then guess what? He's homeless. He can't afford it. So this is a problem, and I think God is going to use me to be a voice and to fight for injustice. This is not right. So many people are becoming homeless, and there's no affordable. You can't afford it anymore, and so there's got to be a way to give people. To make housing affordable. There's got to be a way, or else we'll just continue to have this problem, and it's going to continue to grow, and then all of a sudden we will have homelessness just out of control. And what do? Are we just going to allow that to happen? No. number one, they're people, and number two, we don't want that problem. It's going to impact this city, and so we got to do something about it. So that's kind of my overall experience, and God is just so faithful. I'm thankful and grateful to God for protecting me and Bill. It's a very dangerous. It's very dangerous out there, and see what God will do after this. Just looking forward to what He is going to do and how He's going to use me and Bill through this. So through this experience. Hey, thanks for watching this video. I appreciate you guys.